Bama was a big winner on Saturday, but what does that mean? What did you think of the offensive line? They didn't have Kadyn Proctor. How did that affect things? We're going to go behind the scenes with the best in the business, breaking that stuff down. The two-time All-American, Mike Johnson, on the All-American Report. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We're going to be talking about Alabama right after this. All right, there he is. Mike Johnson, Mick Gillispie here. Let's just get into this right off the bat. How do you get hurt in the pregame stuff? I mean, you've been through did you ever go out there like, oh, man, my knee hurts or my arm? I mean, how does that even happen?
Listen, man, I felt pretty good with Marcel Darius in pregame because when I was a senior, he was quote-unquote second string, which I still don't know how that happened. We used to thump pretty good, so I can see it happening. And look, you know as well as I do, man, a lot of these guys, especially when Saban was there, you went really, really hard in pregame. You did your one-on-ones. You did your run blocking. So it is what it is. It's not shocking, and it sounds like it's kind of a soft tissue deal. So, you know, it's not out of the ordinary, but nothing you want to see for sure, especially when that news comes down right before toe meets leather.
So Kadyn Proctor was a late scratch, and we kind of got into this last week, Mike. You say you're an offensive lineman first, and then I guess a football player second. When you saw that it was like Eliza Pritchard and Wilkin Formby were battling for the right tackle spot, and then as soon as the injury happens, Pritchard had played that before, so Pritchard went over there to play that position, and it's I don't know. I mean, was it seamless? Seemed seamless to me, but I'm not an expert at this.
No, I think it was the first series. He ends up giving up a little pressure and sack, and Jalen Milroe, kind of holds the ball a little bit, but it's just one of those things, man. If you haven't done it much, and like you said, we talked about this a little bit last show. If you haven't done it much, you get out of practice so fast. I mean, it's just simple things like making sure you don't put your head in. And he did give up a sack there in the first series. He bends at the waist, kind of gets his head involved, and the guy does a nice swim move on him and gets around him and sacks Jalen Milroe. So it's nothing he didn't adjust to. I thought he came along really good, after that series, and he kind of got locked back into what that left side is. And also, it looked like, Nick Sheridan kind of changed what they were doing offensively a little bbit to kind of help him. They go from 10 personnel to the second series going into 21 personnel, which I thought was nice. Put a tight end next to him and kind of put the bookends. But, I think he adjusted down the stretch. And truth be told, you're not going to get your toughest test from Western Kentucky. But I thought he ended up doing pretty good in the end.
What did you think of the offensive line total? I know that Parker Brailsford had the one bad snap. Everyone had flashbacks of Seth McLaughlin. So, but I thought he played a good game. I mean, I didn't even talk about it in the post game just because I felt like, well, I mean, here we go. This guy, one bad snap. I mean, we can't hold him accountable for what happened last year. But what did you think?
I thought they played well, man. The angles look pretty good. The steps look pretty good. Like I said, you come out in the first series, you start in 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers and a running back. And then it's like, okay, you know what, man, let's come back. Let's go to 21 personnel. And they put in Dupree, the tight end, and Oots. They kind of put them at the bookend tight ends there at the line of scrimmage, with I thought was awesome. You go to that personnel package and kind of slow the game down a little bit, played in a phone booth a little bit more. You actually saw Jalen Milroe score in an empty backfield, from that personnel grouping. So it was just interesting, to watch that kind of come around. A lot of good pulling being done, the double guard pulls, the counter GTs, and things like that. I thought they played with physicality, which is what you want to see first and foremost when you play a team like Western Kentucky. But also the communication was good, man. And so I think when you look at it from those two aspects, you got everything that you could probably want there in week one.
Do you think that there is some stuff you can't glean from a win like that, just because there were so many explosive plays? And then when you saw some of those plays, like Ryan Williams twice, Jam Miller, his run, Justice Haynes' run, was it that the defense just had breakdowns, or did Alabama, just make a better, more athletic play?
All the above, right? I mean, it's a little bit of everything, I think. I mean, you saw, I think it's on the second Ryan Williams touchdown when he catches that post, kind of splits the defenders, breaks the tackle, and then, scampers upfield. I Nick, it's a good question, and I think the answer is is to say that you can't really glean anything from that. You have a lot of explosive playmakers. I can tell you that much. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway. You also have a coach that more so maybe than any coach offensive coach Alabama had, aside from maybe Lane Kiffin, but maybe even more than him, that understands how to use explosive playmakers.
Right.
That's the biggest takeaway for me. It doesn't tell you anything about what the season's going to be, and we can get into the kind of the next few weeks as we go throughout the show. But you didn't have to sustain drives. You didn't have to, worry about penalties and miscues really for the most part, other than the bad snap, like you're saying. So it was a great first game for Kalen DeBoer, but kind of like to your point, I don't know that I have many takeaways in terms of projecting the rest of the year. It's none of the other football games are going to look anything like that Western Kentucky game. So I don't really know what to take away from it.
Yeah, right. I felt kind of the same way last year about the Middle Tennessee game. Alabama clubbed them. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was sloppy, but it wasn't hard. Now they go this upcoming week against South Florida, a team that they struggled against last year, but they didn't have their starting quarterback, or at least the guy that became the starting quarterback, Jalen Milroe, in that one. And they come back to town, and another 31-point spread. And another game that if Alabama does the things that we expect them to do, I mean, you would figure that they could take care of business again.
Yeah, I think when you look at South Florida, really in a lot of ways, Mick, they're kind of feast or famine. This is a team that, and this is what's crazy last year, and you brought up last year's game. Last year they're playing a South Florida team that had not won many games at all in the 4 years prior to that. And really coming into a new coaching staff and doing things differently. I think I saw the stat last year leading into the South Florida game for Alabama that in the last 4.5 years before that, South Florida had only won 4 FBS games in the last 4.5 years leading into that matchup with Bama. And then Bama gets hit in the mouth and you have the weather delay and you're not playing good at the quarterback position and everything's just chaos, right? It's kind of crazy to look and see how those two paths kind of diverge from that point on, with Jalen Milroe taking back over and South Florida actually having a decent season, down there for their own right. But South Florida's going to come in, Mick. They're going to try to snap the ball 1,000,000 times, and I think that's actually going to be a pretty good test for a young secondary and a young defense and how they communicate with Kane Womack. I mean, we didn't even get a chance yet to talk about the glitch with the headsets to start the game. I thought we were going to get our first Kalen DeBoer meltdown there before the game even started. He said in the postgame presser he'd never seen anything like that, and I was like, well, I have. I've seen that a couple of times where the headsets don't work. So I don't know. I think this will be probably a better test coming up. I don't know if it's a more quality football team, but I think South Florida is a better test from top to bottom, have a little bit more speed, a little more playmakers at skill positions, and we'll do things a little bit differently like some other teams you'll see down the road.
Yeah, no doubt. Take me through the headset issues. I mean, and this is supposed to be where now Deontay Lawson gets to wear a headset. He's got a helmet with a green sticker. That means he gets to have straight communication from the coaches.
Yeah. And it's different too. If one coaching staff is not able to do it, and it's the way it's always been. This is not a new thing. If one coaching staff is not able to wear the headsets, then neither one of them are able to wear the headsets. It just so happens that this year in game 1 is the first time they've ever been able to wear the headsets in the helmet for the players. I think it happened one time when I was in college, and Mick, it actually happened when I was with the Atlanta Falcons. And what ended up happening in that instance is they made all the coaches wear corded headsets on the sideline. It was the craziest thing you've ever seen, because the coaches are all weaving back and forth. And by halftime, I mean, it just looks like a massive braid on the ground of just cords going to all these headsets. So it's not the first time I've seen it, but you could tell that Coach DeBoer on the sideline was like, are you kidding me right now? The first time we get to wear headsets? I think he would never admit it. He probably suspected a little bit of gamesmanship from the other sideline from Western Kentucky, but he'd probably never admit it, that that's what he was going with. But it was a little bit crazy to start the game and see that happen in the very first game you have him in the helmet.
Well, take me through that. So if the other side, so that gives them some kind of an advantage?
Well, I think it just throws you into chaos a little bit. If you're Western Kentucky, you go, they're going to be able to use headsets on the field. That's huge. They got a first-year head coach, 2 first-year coordinators, right. A lot of youth on defense. Let's just let's just see if maybe we forget to plug something in to start the game, and maybe we, maybe we throw a little wrench in. I'm not saying that's what happened. I wouldn't put it past anybody in college football these days, especially going into Bryant-Denny Stadium, to say, let's just have a little gamesmanship on the line and see what happens, man. Throw a little chaos in there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Very interesting. I mean, for somebody that's been down there. Didn't matter though. 63-3 was the final. Your thoughts on Jalen Milroe? Would you see him do? Did you like his performance? I wasn't looking as much at the deep ball. I wanted to see maybe him be a little bit crisper on the short to mid-range passes, and then obviously just run with authority, which I thought he did a great job of.
Yeah, and being decisive. I think you've heard, Kalen DeBoer use that term a lot when he talks about Jalen Milroe, especially with his legs, which is kind of crazy to think about. Usually when you look at quarterbacks that scramble and use their legs and get downfield, it just looks natural, right? Like they're just being an athlete doing what they can do. But there is a level of decisiveness you have to have. It's like, okay, my guy's not there. Let me make something else happen. So I actually thought one of my favorite plays, and I can't remember the receiver he hit out to the left on the sideline. Maybe it was Kendrick Law. Where he steps up in the pocket, kind of rolls to his left just a little bit, kind of puts his head down like he's going to run, then lifts his head back up and throws it over to Law along the sideline, and they get a touchdown that way. So I thought he played well. I mean, for what he was asked to do, what was he, 7 of 9? Hits Ryan Williams a couple of times. It was great. I don't know, like I said at the beginning of the show, if you can do anything, look at anything later on in the schedule in terms of what he was asked to do in this game, but for what it was, you love to see Alabama dominate opponents, and he started off on the right foot. I think he was decisive with his legs, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, him busting out those runs, and then all of a sudden you hit him with Justice Haynes or Jam Miller. I just kept wondering.
I'm going to be honest with you. I there might not be a bigger Justice Haynes fan than me. I mean, he reminds me so much of like a fast Mark Ingram. Like, it just blows my mind. His top end speed, his shiftiness left and right is awesome. And I mean, we've all, we all remember his dad, Veron, playing, and it's actually Veron's from where I live right now over here in Atlanta in the North Sandy Springs area. But, Justice is just one of those guys. I've followed him for years, being over here in the Atlanta area, him playing at Buford. I think he's just different, man. And I looked at that playoff game last year and the touches that he was getting kind of down the stretch. And I was like, and this guy is somebody that can absolutely tote the load. He looks like a Heisman Trophy winner to me, Mick. And I'm not getting too far out in front of my skis. I'm just telling you, that guy's different, man. I haven't seen enough of the blitz pickup stuff and the check down and the screen game, whatever it may be. But I'm just telling you, man, that guy gets the ball in his hands. It's a home run waiting to happen, man. I love when that guy gets the ball.
I kept wondering why we didn't see him last year.
I think it has to just be a playbook thing, honestly. I mean, I think the Falcons actually dealt with a little bit of that last year. And obviously, anybody that's just watching for the first time, I cover the Falcons too. Bijan Robinson, you get the number 8 overall draft pick. And everybody's like, Bijan. And really, the best plays were swing routes and just outside zone. It's because he knew those really well. I think he dealt with a lot of the same things Justice Haynes. It's like, he's really explosive, but what's the depth of the playbook you can actually understand at that age? And I think that's kind of the hurdle you run into with some of these young offensive skill players. It's like the playbook they're learning is like this big, and they probably know this much of it. And so it kind of limits what you can do when they're out there.
Switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you guys that we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your deposit. That's right. Mybookie.ag will double your deposit when you use the promo code NEXTROUND. Kickoff is here. You guys, we got past week 0 and 1. Mybookie.ag, promo code NEXTROUND. Also, as you watch the show, the only way you're watching this right now is if you have a membership to cover Crimson. So make sure you pass that on to your friends, man. Try to get them in here too. We appreciate you guys though for being subscribers, for being members of this this channel and this site, and for hanging out with us on the All-American Report. All right, defensive side of the football. They were dogs. Can I use that term? Did I hear barking?
Yeah.
And I
sorry.
What's your dog's name?
Charlie.
Charlie would be proud of Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. There was 11-0 everywhere I turned around, man. I mean, Charlie knows that you have to have dogs to win.
Let me go close the door before I go any further.
Leave him up there, man. I love
I can't.
Yeah, give us the dogs on defense. And I said linebackers because I felt like those guys were all over the place, 11-0.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you kind of look across the board. I thought Q Robinson on some of his early stuff. You know what's crazy, Mick? And I think from Alabama fans that obviously pay a lot of attention to this roster. And right, there's been so much roster turnover, and you still continue to sign great classes, though, right? I mean, you look at some of the freshmen that are involved, or redshirt freshmen, whatever it is. They look good, Mick. I mean, the eye test when you're looking at some of these guys, just from top to bottom, the linebackers outside and inside, the edge rushers, and those guys in the middle, they look phenomenal. I could not take my eyes off some of these guys on defense, and just how Dallas Turner like some of these guys look, or Will Anderson like. And those guys were in the program for a long time, man. And you just look at some of those young guys. Now it's different than it's ever been. I'm like, man, wait till that guy's a senior.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realize you have to kind of keep them around till then nowadays. But goodness gracious, I think first and foremost, when you look at Rusall, Robinson, a number of other guys that were coming off the edge, they just look phenomenal. They look like 4th and 5th year players, and they're still very, very young in terms of their contributions. So I think that was my very first takeaway. You talk about dogs, violent, physical, flying around, jumping, celebrating. I mean, it just looked like the great Bama defenses of the Reuben Foster era, back when those national championships were coming, 2015, things like that, CJ Mosley's. I mean, that linebacking core all the way across. And like I said, the outside guys that are edge rushers in the 2-point, my goodness, they look good, don't they, Mick? I mean, sheesh.
I thought so. I mean, I thought that Campbell, I kept seeing 11 every time I turned around. There he was flying in on a play, 0.
Even a guy like, and not to jump too far ahead, even a guy like Red Morgan. I mean,
yeah,
I'm watching these guys play, and I'm like, sheesh. And, with all the people you had leave and all the guys you had coming in, transferring in, and then, the signing class, and you kind of have to keep up and really pay attention to who's young and who's not. And I kept thinking, that must be a 5th-year transfer. No, that's a redshirt freshman. Oh, that must have been a guy they got, that's a graduate. Nope, that's a true freshman. It's like, yeah, my goodness, these kids. I mean, Ryan Williams is a prime example. We already talked about him. Kid's 17.
Yeah,
Nick, and he's absolutely explosive. So they're doing a good job. I don't know who's in the Scott Cochran role down there right now, but boy, oh boy, they're doing the right things down there in the nutrition area. That's for sure.
Keon Sabb, the transfer from Michigan with a couple of interceptions. What did you think about the safeties, and not just the way they defended the pass, but stopping the run?
I thought, well, first and foremost, against the path, extremely rangy. I thought that TJ Finley, and that's a guy that's played a lot of football. I thought early in the game, especially, he thought that he could fit balls into windows that just were not there. And that goes to, both those safeties, as well as, everybody really involved in that nickel and dime defense and the wolf positions, they're calling it now, and things like that. I just thought the ranginess, they looked like they were flying all around. I don't know if it was an expectation or film room kind of thing, or maybe, Western Kentucky's wide receivers weren't doing a great job of kind of getting open, but it just seemed like Sabb, obviously, especially on the second pick, just flying around, man, just giving different looks and, understanding where he's supposed to be in Ken Womack's system. It was beautiful, man. I mean, that's really, and Nick Saban has said it, right? When he talks about Georgia and Texas being the favorites for this, he's like, well, they got to figure out the back end. It's just 1 week, and it's just Western Kentucky. But my goodness, they looked like they were energetic, enthusiastic, violent. I mean, all the above when you can use words to describe that defense and those safeties on the back end.
Yeah, it was a great shutout win. And Kane Womack, was like, hey, we're happy, but still a lot of stuff to work on. It was absolutely dominating when you look at the statistics, like 600 to 100 and change, right? But you want to have a coach. You played for Nick Saban, that's never satisfied, and then you're only as good 1 week to the next. So it's pretty exciting to kind of see where this thing's going to go from where it was to where it's going to be. But the schedule gets tough, so they're going to be challenged. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Well, not only that, Mick, but when you start to break down the next 3 weeks, I don't know. I'm trying to think in the back of my head, I don't know if you could have picked 3 different teams that play more, 3 more different styles of offense than you can the next 3 weeks. I mean, like I said about South Florida earlier, it's quarterback centric. It's let's try to run 400 plays in the game. Let's run kind of the same inside zone, RPO, take our shots down the field. I mean, as soon as the referee is spotting the ball, South Florida is snapping it. And then you go up to Wisconsin, and you're like, dude, this is a team, Mick, that they'd play 8 offensive linemen if they could every snap. You know what I mean? It's just old school, gritty football. You know that place is going to be raucous. Personally, thank God it's at noon, because I can't imagine if you had been in Camp Randall and it had been a nighttime game for that. But thank God that's a noon. And then Georgia, on the flip side of that does a little bit of both. That spreads it around to the skill players, is going to run the RPO, but also plays big boy football. And so it's going to be really interesting to see the dynamic and just see how well-rounded you are defensively in the next few weeks, because I don't know if you could have possibly looked ahead and scheduled 3 more different opponents that'll try to attack you in 3 different ways.
Yeah, right. This feels like going into this game, and we'll get into it more later on this week, but the offensive coordinator from Tennessee from the year that they beat Alabama is the head coach. So you know what they're going to do. They're going to try to throw deep on you. They're going to try to work you in, and then all of a sudden just rip down the field with deep passes and try to go fast, right?
Yeah. Well, and too, it's not a secret to anybody watching right now that Josh Heupel's offense, when it's run by a guy that understands it, it's beautiful to watch. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, Hendon Hooker was operating at a very high level when he goes down with his injury. I don't think you saw that last year in terms of somebody that really knows how to operate at a high level, but I think you've got somebody down in South Florida with their quarterback that can do it at a pretty high level himself. I mean, I don't think, I don't think he's going to look like Hendon Hooker anytime soon, but he's a guy that can definitely beat you with his legs and throw it down the field as well. So he is. I hate using this term, but he's got the blueprint, if you will. The good news is that Alabama's different than they've ever been, right? This is not, hey, I know how to attack Nick Saban's defense. This is, what do you do as far as Kane Womack, right? I mean, this is a completely different style of defense that is not used to that Josh Heupel, kind of offense. So I think Alabama actually has a check mark in their bracket with it being new.
Going to be pretty fun Saturday night against South Florida, but we'll kind of preview that. What do you got going on, Mike? I mean, what can people? I know you. How'd the Falcons do? I know it's not the regular season yet, but
well, the Falcons got week 1 coming this week. They're going to play Arthur Smith, the coach they just fired. They're playing him as the offensive coordinator. He's the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you got Russell Wilson, who's QB1 for them. Justin Fields is their backup, so the Falcons will be hooking up against them, man, and Kirk Cousins' debut, and trying to see what all they can get done. And you asked what I got going on, Mick. I'm going to Tuscaloosa this weekend, dude. I got to go. I'm going for the Saban Field, commemoration or whatever they want to call it. Going to go see some of my old teammates, get a little lunch, little deal like that. Maybe see 1 quarter before I head back over to Atlanta, because I got to work Sunday for the Falcons game. But that's what I got going on, man. Just a lot of ball. I'll just put it that way.
Are you guys all going to be on the field?
I'm coaching T-ball now, Mick. I don't know if you know this. I'm coaching T-ball now. So that's a 4-year-old T-ball, man. That's a whole different hurricane right there.
Do you will you guys be on the field Saturday, or it's in the stands?
I don't think so. And the reason why is they are honoring the 2014 SEC champions, which is Blake Sims and company, I believe. So that's going to be a little bit different. I'll be honest, I don't know what they have planned, Mick. I told them I'd be there. I told them I'd be at the luncheon or whatever else they've got going on. It'd be good to see Coach Saban and some of my old buddies over there. So I'm not sure, man. I don't know when they're going to do all that kind of stuff, but I'm assuming halftime or something like that, but it's going to be cool to see his name on there. I was joking with some of my buddies on radio. I'm not calling it Bryant Denny anymore. It's just going to be Saban Field. They're squaring off at Saban Field. So,
well, they should have named it. They should have named it Saban Bryant Field. mean, no offense to Denny, but he's got a big thing on campus already. That giant.
Yeah, I mean, there's some recency bias there for sure. I think that when you look at what that guy did, for the football team at Alabama, it's a big deal. So I don't know, man. I'm good with it. I know that Coach Saban's good with it. Maybe one year, way down the road, things will change, but it doesn't seem like enough. I'll just say that. It doesn't seem like enough. You're like, dude, this guy's the greatest coach in history, and here we are. We're throwing it together with a field name, the same as like Steve Spurrier. So,
all right, final thing, AP and coaches top 25. They're out there now. Georgia consensus number 1. Pretty close to it, right? I mean, 57 of the votes. Ohio State number 2, Texas number 3, Alabama up to number 4. Ole Miss number 5, and Oregon down 3 spots. What do you think about that?
I'll be honest with you. I think that Notre Dame probably had one of the best wins of the weekend, and I'm going to, with all apologies to USC. USC beat LSU at a neutral site. Miami beat Florida on their home turf, but I don't think Florida's any good. I look at Notre Dame and that win over Texas A&M down in College Station. That's a big dub. So I think you found out a little bit about Notre Dame, those top 4 teams. You found out a little bit about them. Georgia's the same way. I mean, you beat Clemson on a neutral field, but Clemson just seemed lifeless, man. It's like, it was like enough already. I think they've been beaten. So we'll see, man. It's really going to be a fun year because it's usually you look at these AP top 25 polls early in the year and you're like, well, we won't get to see that matchup or that matchup. And it's like, no, you're going to see those matchups this year. You know what I mean? The teams, the Oregons in the Big Ten and things like that, Texas and the SEC, that's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah. No, nobody really lost, but put it back up there. But if you didn't play great, you went down. You know, like Oregon just struggle bus win, boom, they're down.
Yeah.
USC, big win over LSU, they're up. And then, of course, the AP loves Notre Dame, so they're up to 5 in that one, and their coaches don't care as much, so they're 7. But still, I thought it was a great win, and Alabama slides.
Survive in advance, Mick. It's just survive in advance, man. The reason you don't have the college football playoff poll is just survive in advance, dude.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and being a part of Cover Crimson. Obviously, this is your show, and we appreciate you being a subscriber to the channel, exclusive content that you get for being here. We do want to thank the people at mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the promo code NEXTROUND. Kick off the season with mybookie.ag and double your initial deposit using Next Round. Mike, we'll talk to you later this week. What works for you? Tomorrow? Thursday?
Tomorrow works. We can do Thursday. Probably Thursday. We'll lock it in.
I'm going to the scene of the oysters tomorrow. Bama.
Yeah, that's a good place, man. I wish I could come down there.
Sure.
Maybe I'll send my dad over there from Purdue.
Big unit. Tell him I'll be there lunchtime.
Yeah, look, man, I'm sure he'd love to. Need to get some of the oysters himself.
They're nothing like the Bama oysters, but stay away from those toppers on the bushwhackers, floaters. They're powerful.
Wise words to all, my friend. Wise words to all.
All right, roll tide, guys.